Okay, today I'm going to be doing a video showing how to replace the brake pads on a quad piston brake setup. This is, usually found on high performance cars. This is a 2016 Lexus RC. I've taken the wheel off, turned it to make my life a little bit easier so I can access the pads right over here. Okay, so I've jacked the vehicle up. Now's an opportunity to just check the suspension as well. So I'm going to check a ball joint, stick some sort of long bar that you have, if you have something like this, underneath, and just give slight upward movements, and that'll give you indication as to whether you have any worn suspension components. You can also shake with both hands, one on one side. Only I can't do it now because I am obviously filming, but and then shake it back and forth to test for tie rod ends. Once that's all good, you could proceed to take the wheel off. Okay, another good opportunity while you're doing something like this is to run your hands along the complete circumference of the tire. That's just checking. A lot of times if there is an issue with the tire, you're not going to be able to see it, but if there's something that is really obvious, you'll be able to feel it. You'll feel a bump or just some sort of out of round condition that'll notify you to change that tire. Another little tip is that, so you don't have problems in the future, especially if you get stuck on a road, high temperature ice, anti-seize lubricant on each thread and around the hub, so that your roller will come off easy, your tire will come off easy, and there's no issues in the past. So there's a dirty caliper here. The other one I cleaned. You can see the difference. Opportunity to clean this up so everything looks nice, spanking brand new. And here's old pads over there. Start by taking this pin out here, okay? And what we'll have to do is we'll have to push this spring. This spring here, this is literally a spring, keeps pressure onto the brake pads so they don't rattle around. So you push this in while pulling this out at the same time, and then that allows you to pull the brake pads out. So let me do that, and I'll show you how the pads come out. So I've removed the pin, goes in here, and then you see how the spring popped out. And you just need to, when you're reinstalling it, you'll need two hands. You push this down like that, and then push the pin in at the same time, so that it goes across, and then you got to catch this other hole and the hole in the caliper as well. So, all right. So now, what you do when you're assembling this is you make sure that all of these points here, where it makes contacts, you can see where it made contact with the pad. Those are all greased with some high temperature moly grease brake lube. You put it on the pin as well, because the pin is going to roll through here. Now, also, when you get pads, make sure you get pads that have new springs, because these things tend to lose their tension over time, and then you'll have brake pads that'll rattle around. Okay, so these happen to be, you literally don't even have to you don't even really need any tools to do these brake pads. Honestly, I could do this brake job without any tools other than what I need to take off the tire. So the pads, usually just grab them. If they don't come out with your hand, just grab a pair of pliers and you pull the pads out, right? So this is, you see how the rotor just shifted and moves? That's why we put the studs on here, or the lugs, to hold the rotor in place. Put one on either side, opposing sides, so you get a nice firm grip on the rotor. If I'm going too slow for you, please adjust the playback speed. If you didn't know that trick, it's in settings. As I know, attention span is kind of low nowadays. So you pull out the other pad. Now you notice there's grease on this pad here, okay? You'll want to put grease on the shims before you put them in. This is, if you can see here, 2 pistons on this side, 2 pistons on that side. If I try to compress this side, it's only going to push out this side. So they need to be compressed in simultaneously. There is a tool that does that. Probably have to take the caliper off in order to use that tool, but a trick to doing it without the tool is basically using the pads themselves. And what you'll do is you'll put pads, you'll slide them back in so that the pad contacts both of the pistons at the same time. And then you'll do the same to the other side. Okay? Hold them up like this, and then you can do it by hand, or you can get a pair of pliers, and you basically squeeze these two together. And that's going to bring the pistons in. So I'm going to do it with my hands, but I need 2 hands to do it. And I'll show you the pistons when they're been compressed. So this is what your pads should look like when they're compressed. The ends are close together, and now your pistons are fully compressed in and ready for new pads. Seat on both sides. So the other thing you want to do, I'll tell you now this, okay? When you get new pads, you want to take these shims off and check that there's grease underneath the shim. If there isn't, you'll apply it, and then you'll put grease on top of the shim where those 2 circles are. That's where you want to get. You know, anywhere else it's really not necessary, but you want to have grease where the 2 pistons make contact with the pad. Okay? Then this edge that slides along here as well should get, not too much, just, you know, a light coating of grease on both sides. And then, so this is where how the pad goes in, and this is the point where that spring touches the pad. So you want to grease that as well. Basically, grease any place that has contact point except for the pad surface. Do not put any grease on the pad surface whatsoever. Even if you get squealing or anything like that, there's no grease, WD-40, any type of lubricant on the pad surface. I mean, that's a no-brainer, but some people just, I've seen people do it. So I'm gonna put this back together and then show you the finished results. Okay. Apologize for all the leaves, but it's like clean them away, they just keep coming back. It's a windy day, so it's fall. What can I tell you? It's the shim. They come off easy. Okay, basically just pry it up and they pop back on the same way. Just push it down. So what you'll need to do is you put grease on the backing plate right here. A nice circle here. You just put a light coating on the whole surface here, staying away from the edges, really just more in the center, and then pop this back on, and then put another round circle on both these areas here to try to hit where the piston is going to make contact. So here's another thing. These are your brake sensors. When your pad gets down all the way to that level there, these are going to make contact with the rotor and squeal every time you apply the brakes, and sometimes even when you're just driving normally. Okay, so these sensors basically go on the backside of your rotor over here. Okay, so the other thing I would say is that you'll find 2 pads have these little spring things on them. The other one, see, doesn't have that on there, okay? And these are your wear sensors. When your pad gets all the way down, to that level there, it's going to make contact. This spring will make contact with your rotor, and then it'll squeal when you're applying the brakes, sometimes when you're not even applying the brakes, just driving. So what you want to do is make sure that you have the right, this goes on the inside, you know, always on the back side of the rotor, and the spring will be on different sides of the whatchamacallit, the pad. You want to make sure that the rotation, oh my God, the rotation of the rotor is pushing the spring down when it makes contact. Pushing the spring, because if it was going the other way, it would be pulling the spring away, and a lot of times what happens, it makes noise for a little bit and then just snaps off. And then you say, oh, problem solved. You keep driving, before you know it, you wear down the pads completely till you get to the backing plate, and now you need pads and rotors. You know, not to mention that it could be dangerous driving because you won't have the same stopping ability. So make sure that you place these springs in a direction, like this one would have to be in this direction. The rotor would have to be going in this direction in order to, when it makes contact, it's going to push the spring down and not break off. Okay? Okay, it was just getting too windy up on the floor, so I had to bring it over a little bit higher so the leaves didn't really contaminate what I was doing here. So you see how I put the grease on top, and you see how I put the grease underneath. I probably went a little bit overboard over here. Shouldn't have it sticking out from the shim, but it's not a big deal. And then I've put grease on all the contact surfaces where the pad is going to make contact. I should add to that spot too. That's where the spring's going to make contact. And then slide it in and put everything back together. All right. Okay, so pads are in, and now I have the spring clip that I've lubed up the points of contact, also where the guide pin goes as well, and the guide pin fillet. Now it's just a matter of taking this, and it basically gets pressed up right against there while you slide that pin in through there and push this in while you're doing that, and the pin would slide. I could probably do it at home. Let me see if I can get, no, it's gonna slide, so let me just get the pin started. Pin will go through here. Oh, come on, pin. There you go. And then it'll go through this hole of the pad. It has to go through both holes of the pad. That hole and into the other side of the caliper. At that point, you're going to put this pin, this locking pin, in place to hold it. So I'll show you that in a second. Right now, let's just back this all the way out. All right, I could probably put it to about that location there. And then let's get this spring clip back here where it's supposed to go. And I'm gonna push with this thumb, push with the other. Let's see. So there we go. Just a little more. It's tough because you gotta get it all the way, and that's it. Now it's in. You can see that it's into the caliper. It's fully seated in the back here, and you just have to put this little guy in here. I usually like to rotate it up so it's out of the way like that, and wipe away any excessive grease that you might have. Clean the caliper. And also, when you're done with the brake job, do not forget to pump the brakes, because now these, before you put the car in drive or anything like that, pump the brakes a few times so the pistons can close in, because right now they're fully compressed and the pads are kind of loose. So you'd want to pump it a few times. That'll get them to the point where when you hit the brake, it'll actually stop the car. Guys, if I helped you out in any way, please comment, subscribe, and like the video, you know, so I can continue doing stuff like this. Obviously, Not the best video, but the information is there. Hope it helps somebody. Peace. Okay, and the last piece of advice here from user experience, and I've seen people do this. They put the wheel on, it's hanging off, and they just tighten the lugs, and before you know it, the wheel's not on, completely straight and cocked, and it's falling off a few miles down the road. You need to make sure that the hub and the wheel are mated perfectly and not cocked before you put on a single lug. So I'll hold it tight here once I get it on straight, you know. I'll just hold it like that and use my other hand to let's see if I could do this. So I'll hold it with my foot and then tighten this up by hand. All right, at which point I could now easily take my time, and I'm ready. Now the wheel's not gonna come off. And I could put the rest of the lugs on. So now, always thread these on first before you put any type of power tool on here. A couple of turns, no cross threading. We don't want that kind of big problem happening. And then when you tighten them, if you're using a power tool, just tighten them like this. All right, just nice and easy until it stops, okay? Until it stops, right? So we want to tighten it in a star pattern. And what you'll do is, after you get all of these on, not tight, but just on, nice and snug, you'll lower the car partially to get the wheel on the floor. This is, you want to do it with any car because you really don't want to put that kind of force on the transmission. Put the wheel on the ground, then use a torque wrench, 80 to 100 pounds. You have to look up the specification for your specific vehicle. That's usually what the case is. And then you torque it like that. Then you shouldn't have any issues with your rotors warping. Your brake shop shouldn't squeal. The brakes should perform as they should. All right, I think that's the last tip. Good luck with your project. Any comments, questions, leave them below. I'll be happy to answer if I can. All right, take care, guys. Bye.